Someone asked on Reddit, what was it that your therapist said to you that changed your thinking? In which story were you more surprised by what the therapist said? Express your opinion in the comments. Store 1.
I was having some very strong anxiety at the time, especially in regards to other people. I felt like I was judged everywhere, like I couldn't go to the store, take the bus, or even go to a walk because I felt people were judging my every move, how I dressed, how was my hair, how I talked, even how I walked. Every stranger was thinking bad of me. It was scary as hell. I was telling her about this and how I started avoiding going out, which was a problem because I had to go to college soon. And she looked me straight in the eyes and told me, "I'm telling you this with all the care of the world, but you are not special. There is nothing that would make me think twice if we crossed in the street," is harsh and is exactly what I needed. All the anxiety didn't let me see that until she said it. Obviously, she helped me some other ways, but this really changed my life when she said it. I could go to college and be out because of it.
Store 2.
I grew up in a very abusive home. I had to raise some of my younger siblings and work under-the-table jobs before I was legally allowed to work just to feed us. As a child, I was sometimes left alone for weeks at a time, while the adults in my life went crazy. It was actually the most peaceful times and something I looked forward to. I did everything I could to prevent my siblings from learning the full extent of neglect. I would direct physical, verbal abuse at myself to protect them. I never let them see how overwhelmed I was trying to keep us safe. There were many times when I couldn't afford to feed us all. I would tell them I wasn't hungry. I would break down many times after they went to bed. I didn't want them to see me sobbing from sheer exhaustion and stress. I tried to give them semi-normal childhoods. I would find extra odd jobs so they could go on school trips. Sometimes I would take them to the park. I tried to give them small rewards whenever I could. I did my best to show them unconditional love. I never felt enough. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't know how to deal with my own trauma at the time. Sometimes I would get very angry. I never hit any of them even once, but I almost did. Sometimes I would get angry over little things and yell at them. I always felt extremely guilty about it. At one point, I chose to run away. I told myself at the time that if I didn't run away, I would die. And then who in the world would care enough to try to save my brothers and sisters? I haven't seen them since then. Child Protective Services finally did their job a week after years of evidence of abuse were shown. I really struggled with the separation. I still question what happened that caused Child Protective Services to do what they should have done years ago. I began to question whether my intention to leave was right or whether I just wanted to save myself. I felt so much guilt and shame for not being able to fully protect them, for not being there for them, and for not doing more. You were just a child. You did the best you could. You had to shoulder things that most adults would struggle with. Things were out of your control. You were not selfish because you chose to protect yourself. That was my therapist's reaction.
Story 3.
I was in the process of being evaluated for bariatric surgery, and part of that was an evaluation by a mental health professional. So my surgeon recommended a psychiatrist who is in the network for my insurance and specializes in eating disorders and does these assessments. I made an appointment. They sent me a thick packet of paperwork and told me that it had to be filled out completely, that it had to be brought to the appointment. Okay, nothing important, right? About 15 pages of explanations and cliché rubbish. Sign and date each page, and then the hard part. The questionnaire about me and my life was 12 pages, front and back. Remember, you have to fill it out when you arrive. They make it clear that if anything is not done, they will cancel the appointment and may or may not reschedule you. Cancellation fee and everything included. It was good that I had plenty of time to work on it, because they were not easy questions. On the day of the appointment, I double-checked everything. They even gave me a summary checklist. That was nice. And I went in. It's a nice office in the medical office wing of the hospital. It's quite small. The receptionist greeted me by name, had me sign and checked all the paperwork, checked that it was complete, gave me back my questionnaire forms and said it would take a moment. They call me back. The doctor greets me by name, asks for my questionnaire, and explains the structure of the meeting. I take a seat, agree to wait while he reads out my answers, clarifying 1 or 2 answers as my handwriting is not masterclass. He takes a few notes, then puts my papers aside, looks me in the eye, and says in a relaxed manner, "So, Mr. Blah Blah, your parents didn't really want you around when you were a kid, did they?" After the shock of getting hit in the center of the eye with a hammer, I swallowed, thought about it, and accepted it. It changed my life in many ways. I had surgery and lost 120 kilos, and it was worth it in every way.
Story 4.
My wife and I struggled a lot early in our marriage, and I started getting frustrated. I started going to therapy. After about 3 months, I started complaining about how my wife reacted to confrontations and harsh arguments. She and I come from very different backgrounds. I grew up in a big wealthy family and on a big horse farm. I was a very good athlete, popular. He was the only child of a recovering alcoholic single mother who never knew his father. He grew up on welfare in a very rich town and always struggled socially. My therapist, who knew all this, said the following, and it changed my life. You grew up on a horse farm with big dogs, right? Yes. In general, what is the difference between the way you approach a horse and the way you approach a dog? With horses, you have to move slowly and gently. Be purposeful. They are big and super strong, but they naturally hunt animals. If they don't know you, they don't know that you don't want to hurt them. Even if they know you, you should try to move slowly and calmly. Most dogs have a natural level of self-confidence, and therefore, you can approach them in a more confident and relaxed way. Okay, great. You are the dog. Your wife is the horse. You need to remember that in every interaction you have with her, every compliment, every difficult discussion. That session saved my marriage. 15 years strong and getting better every year.
Story 5.
Suddenly, I was told to my face that I might have a brain tumor or that I had schizophrenia. I think I was around 19. People expected me to pass the grades easily. Instead, I crashed and burned. No one knew why. I went through so many lines mentally trying to figure out what was wrong with me. This was after I told my parents that I really told the health professional that something was wrong and that I needed help. For years, the responses from both my mental health providers and my parents were, "You're lazy, you're arrogant, you don't want to structure your life enough, play less video games." And my healthcare providers kept gently telling my parents to be harder on me. One of the main culprits is the one person in my life that I really dislike to this day for refusing to listen to his client or make an effort. Then, somehow, the story reached the ears of one of my psychiatrists who had treated and supervised both me and my brother for ADHD-related problems in my teenage years. He contacted us. At this point, I'm basically at rock bottom mentally, every day saying, "But wait, there's more." For 3 weeks, I'm being sent to an observation home so they can confirm or rule out schizophrenia. The possibility of getting one of these, or cancer, of course, did wonders for my mental health. So you're waiting in line for 3 weeks in a clinic. You're surrounded by people who are clearly unstable. The atmosphere is awful and depressing. The buildings are actually temporary, but somehow permanent. Dinner is brought in at about 2 o'clock, and by dinner time, it's waiting in a corridor to be reheated, and it smells disgusting. I know, TLDR, but they are trying to paint a picture of how they treat people with mental problems. I had serious breakdowns at night. I really felt I was going crazy. I went to the night shift for emergency help. I was given an Advil and told to go back to my room. You see, they had no idea, and they were wrong. Finally, after finding someone qualified enough to listen and see the mess of my strange problems, I was diagnosed with ASS at the age of 28. Here's what I did myself to find help. Spent 28 years proactively trying to find good mental health care providers. I tried and failed 3 times to find someone to assess me for anxiety. I walked through the door 3 times before being told fun things, like, "You're too socially adept to have autism." My parents said they would involve the ombudsman for some people, even though in our dinner conversations I told them, "I love you, but I'm trying to improve my mental health, but my suffering is getting worse. I'm so tired. I don't want to go on like this." Nobody accepted me. I spent 7 months in a psychiatric ward for people with anxiety disorders, which was the wrong program for me, and they accepted that, but they said it was the lowest stress place they could find, and hey, maybe you can find something that works, and so much more. Mental health care is so important, and it's such a shame how hard it is to get the help you need if it's not something that's stereotypical. And even then, I've been seeing a wonderful psychologist for the last few years. After meeting properly the first few times and asking if she could help, she told me, "I know this is complicated, very complicated. I want us to spend a year getting to know each other before we dare to start." I cried with joy. I still remember how I felt when I think back. To be seen, to be heard, to be taken seriously. I also have a great psychiatrist. Both have personal cell phone numbers. Both make me call and answer when it's urgent and I need them. Be happy.
Story 6.
I did something really awful in high school, and I lied about who did it because I couldn't mentally deal with what I did. Fortunately, that person never faced any negative consequences, but since I've matured, I feel awful. This is what he said. If there was another, better way to deal with what happened, would you have made a different choice? Yes, of course. It means that your mind has no other way to process it, and to protect itself, it's offloading the guilt onto someone else. Now that you are ready to deal with it, you can say, I did this and it was wrong. It really helped me to stop torturing myself for lying and to accept what I did as my own.
If you have a story you would like to share, please share it with us in the comments. Also, subscribe to my channel for more Reddit stories like this. And don't forget to turn on notifications. Take care, friends.